Welcome into another edition of the Good and Plenty podcast. I am your host, Jeff Goodman, and forgive me for my voice. This is usually what happens this time of year, and no, I haven't been drinking. Went from Big 12 tournament the last couple of days in Kansas City and flew to the Big 10 tournament this morning in Chicago. Saw some good games, so it's that time of year. Just got done watching the Duke-Carolina game in which the Blue Devils with Zion Williamson got the win over Carolina to advance to the ACC title game. And got a good podcast for you today as usual, bringing on my buddy Rob Dauster from NBC Sports again to talk all things conference tournament, coaching carousel, a little bit of everything. Please don't forget to subscribe to the pod. Usually it's every Tuesday and Thursday, but, you know, with the schedule over the next couple weeks, it might be Monday or Tuesday. It might be Thursday or Friday. It just depends when I can get to it and when it makes sense. Subscribe, again, Good and Plenty Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your pods. You can find me at Goodman Hoops on Twitter. You can find me at watchstadium.com. You can find me on CLNS Media. So a little bit of everywhere. And now let's bring in Rob Dauster of NBC Sports to talk about everything that's gone on, the craziness that has gone on this week, conference tournaments.
Today's episode of Good and Plenty is powered by betonline.ag. Go to clnsmedia.com/win and use the promo code CLNS50 to receive 50% cash back on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag. Go to clnsmedia.com/win and use the promo code CLNS50 to receive 50% cash back on your first deposit.
All right, now pleased to bring in a return guest, a guy who's made a few appearances on the pod, and that is NBC's Rob Dauster. After I'm sitting here, Rob, in Chicago, I left the fourth game of the Big Ten tournament. Don't tell anybody, but I left Michigan, Iowa to come back to my hotel room so I could watch Duke, Carolina. What do you think of that decision? Smart one?
Yeah, I think it was probably a smart one. I would have enjoyed that game a lot more if it had gone over 162 points, but it did not. So it was a rough evening in the Dauster household.
Well, you probably lost your usual like $3.50. So I'll take care of you in Minneapolis. Don't worry. I'll buy you. I don't know, a beer.
I lost winnings, so that's what matters.
All right, that's still good. All right, let's get to it. Let's get to it here. It is Friday night, and a lot has happened today. I mean, this is one of the best days. I flew in from the Big 12 from Kansas City this morning. It feels like 30 hours ago. Big Ten tournament. Unfortunately, there wasn't a whole lot that happened at the Big Ten tournament, to be honest. Tim Miles losing, I think, was the most entertaining aspect of the day in terms of Miles having a chance to advance. Minnesota beat Purdue. Fairly interesting. But let's get to the big storylines. The big storylines, first of all, let's start with the number one seeds, because that's what everybody's going to want to talk about, right? Who are the number one seeds? I'm not as big on that as everybody else, but to me, I still think you've got Virginia, even if even losing today, they're still to Florida State. They're still a number one. Gonzaga is still a number one. Duke cemented themselves, I think, as a number one by beating Carolina. And I think the fourth number one is still kind of up for grabs, Rob. And I think if Kentucky wins the SEC tournament, they got it.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think that Tennessee, whoever wins that game tomorrow between Kentucky and Tennessee, I think is probably going to be the favorite to end up being that fourth number one seed. And I do think you're right. I do think that this will end up being the difference for Duke, although it's tough for me to completely say that North Carolina has no shot, considering that they beat Duke two different times.
But without Zion twice.
I know it came without Zion, but what I was going to say is that on a neutral floor, they had two shots to beat Duke with Zion. And I know results have to matter, wins and losses have to matter, but when it comes down to it, like if you have that shot to win at the end of the game, that should tell you all you need to know about how good that team is, especially on a neutral floor. It's the same reason why I can sit here and comfortably say, like, I think Duke is still a better basketball team than Gonzaga, even though Duke lost to Gonzaga on a neutral floor. So I think that you have to take that into account. And I kind of have a little bit of an issue when it comes to like seeding teams when you fully take into account who that team was missing when you beat them, right? Like it's not North Carolina's fault that Duke did not have Zion Williamson. So I don't know if I'm fully on board with this idea that you cannot credit them for having those 2 wins over Duke, even if Zion wasn't there.
No, I'm with you. I mean, listen, they beat who they needed to beat. I just feel like, especially in the first matchup at Cameron, it would have been a different deal. I mean, I'm not saying – I am saying I really think Duke would have beaten them by double digits at Cameron that night. And I think everything changed, obviously, when Zion left the game 30 seconds in. But we're not going to go with revisionist history. We don't need to rehash
that argument. No, we don't need to have the whole asterisk ordeal again.
No, I'm sure my mentions have already been flipping out with asterisks, so far. One thing that it's funny, I'm watching the game, and I'm saying to myself, at some point I think I need to devote an entire podcast, probably in the offseason, to Roy Williams and the disrespect that myself and other people in the media have given this guy over the years in terms of not understanding how good of a coach he is and what he's done. And I want to give you a couple numbers, okay? Since he joined Carolina, since he left Kansas to go to Carolina in 03-04, here's a comparison between Roy and Kay. Okay, Roy's won 3 titles. Kay's won 2 titles. Roy went to 1 more national title game. They both went to 1 more Final Four. So basically, Roy's got five appearances in the Final Four. Kay's got 3. He's got 1 more title since then. And if you look at ACC regular season titles, it's like a blowout. I think Carolina has 9 overall, including share. I think they shared twice. I think Duke has 3 over that span, winning 2 outright. The last outright one, I believe, was 06. I mean, isn't that kind of mind-boggling when you hear those numbers?
A little bit. I think part of it is kind of the context you have to put into the entire situation. Like when we're talking about regular season titles, it is a lot of that has to do with the fact that Roy has these kind of older teams, and I don't think anybody really values regular season titles or outright regular season titles as much anymore because you don't get the true round robin. But I am all the way here on this idea that Roy Williams isn't just one of the all-time greats, but he's in the conversation for the greatest, probably maybe even the greatest coach of our generation. At the 2017 Final Four, I wrote a big column about it, and it's not just the wins that he's getting, and it's not just the fact that
it's how he's doing it.
Yeah, that he can put together these rosters, and my whole thing with him is, I feel like people kind of had this idea that Roy Williams is a guy that just rolls the ball. Rolls the ball and lets his guys play, and that's not true. And the reason I feel like I can actually speak on this pretty well because it's not the same level, but the offense that I ran when I was in college, we literally called Kansas because at that time he was at Kansas and we were running Roy Williams offense. Yeah. So I feel like I know it pretty well. And the entire the reason why you can they call it freelance what they do, and the reason why they can just go out there and do that is because Roy Williams drills and drills and drills and drills these guys in practice on where there's certain reads that you have when the ball's coming up the floor. What they want is they want to get the ball into the point guard's hand, having him sprinting up the right side of the floor. He wants the 2 beating the defense down to the right corner, the 3 beating the defense down to the left corner, the 4-man getting all the way down to the block, trying to get one of those sprinting layups, and the 5-man trailing. And then depending on what the point guard does with that first pass, if he passes it to the corner or if he passes it to the trailing big man, or if he hits up ahead to the small forward, wherever it goes, there's a read based on what the point guard does. And what Roy Williams has done with his team and what he drills them on is teaching them not only how to get out in transition and beat people down the floor and where they can find those openings, but when you make that read and when that point guard, whatever decision he makes, how are you going to get your offense off of that? What is going to be the next action that you have? If you're going to do this action, what is the counter to that? What is the read to that? And he drills these guys on being able to play off of certain situations that you're going to come into by running his secondary break instead of just being the guy that goes out there and calls like 9 different plays and 9 different sets and tries to move everybody around like chess pieces. He teaches his guys how to.
So is that why? So Rob, is that why it's taking Kobe White, who was not a point guard coming in? It took him time. I mean, it really did, and it takes every freshman point guard, not everyone, but certainly ones again that haven't really played the point and certainly haven't had to worry about feeding other mouths, in AU and high school. It was Kobe just score. So is that why you think in that system it's taken – this Carolina team went through some lumps early because of Kobe White playing the point and kind of understanding those reads?
I don't know if it's just understanding the reads or it's like every freshman is going to have a little bit of an adjustment period unless, you're Zion Williamson. So I think that probably played a role in it as well. I also think that it was just kind of everybody trying to figure out where they are actually going to get theirs within the offense, right? Like Luke May, we don't really talk about it, but he's had kind of a disappointing season as a senior.
Absolutely.
And part of the reason for that is, Kobe White is a shoot first guy. And part of the reason for that is Cam Johnson is somebody that you run or you make sure you get him in actions where he can catch and shoot. He's not somebody where he's going to catch the ball and it's going to keep moving. Like if he's catching it, it's probably going up because that's what he does best. They don't have a guy like a Theo Pinson. I think I would actually make the argument that Theo was the point guard for him last year. They don't really have a guy that can play that role that can help make everything easier for everybody. And I think part of the adjustment that they had early in the year was like figuring out who was going to do what in what situation, who had what role, when were these guys getting shots, and I absolutely believe that you're right. There was an adjustment period for Kobe White getting there. So I agree with what you're saying, and I think that what we're seeing is them starting to figure it out and kind of Roy Williams being the guy that can put all those pieces and get everything, all the puzzle pieces now fit together better than they did at the start of the season. And I think that also stems from his ability to coach, if that makes sense.
Yep. All right, we're going to bounce around a little bit. Team that you feel much better about than you did a week ago, and I'm going to steal one, I think, from you. It's going to be the team that I saw in the Big 12 tournament, and that's Iowa State. I know you've been on and off that wagon for all year for the most part. What I will tell you, to make you feel better about it, those guys seem to be more bought in because of the losing. I think they're more bought in, and the bad body language that Steve Prohm and his staff showed them on tape. They're more bought into the fact that, okay, you know what? Time is running out. If we don't defend, if we don't play hard, if we don't play together, we're not going anywhere. But their upside, as we've seen already here in the Big 12 tournament, is high. I mean, they smack Baylor. Not that Baylor's super talented, but they play hard as hell. And then they beat a Kansas State team that I know is without Dean Wade, but still is really good defensively. They've been there. They've done that before without Dean Wade going to the Elite Eight. So I do like this Iowa State team. I know they could get bounced early, but they could also make a run, and it wouldn't shock the hell out of me if they got to the Final Four.
Well, Iowa State was going to be my pick, and I just feel so uncomfortable doing that because, I mean, you know this, Jeff. Every single time that I've reached
don't
the point
do it.
I was like, I want to go in. I'm going all in on Iowa State.
If you do that now, I'm telling you, like Steve Prohm's going to be pissed off at you.
Yeah, I don't think I could do it. So I'm just going to pretend like I didn't see any of this happen. I'm going to pretend like, I didn't get my cable wasn't working. So
Who
I couldn't
else?
put on.
So who's your next team? Who's another team that you feel much better about today than you did before the conference tournament started?
Florida State.
Yeah, how can you not, right?
Yeah, I mean, what they did today against Virginia was just so impressive, man. Like, because the thing about it is, the way that Florida State is built is the way that the team that the pack line is kind of designed to take advantage of, right, and to beat, because they do a lot of their work off of getting forcing turnovers and getting stuff in transition. They do a lot of work getting points off of the offensive glass. Yep. A lot of the stuff that they get is getting into the paint and getting their big guys some touches on the block and creating mismatches that way, and Terrence Mann driving to the rim and getting to the paint and finishing, and those are the things that the pack line. It's the whole concept of it is to take those things away. And the fact that Florida State could go out. And by the way, the first time they played, I know like the final score was 65-52, but I remember watching that game, and with 2 minutes left, it was 65-36. Tony Bennett emptied his bench for the walk-ons, and Florida State scored 16 straight points against the walk-ons to make it look like they didn't get absolutely humiliated, but they got absolutely humiliated, and they bounced back. And in the ACC tournament, they come out and they beat it. What was the final score? Was it 69-59, something like that?
I think so. Yeah,
that's a really, really impressive win.
Leonard Hamilton, the youngest 7-year-old on the face of the planet. Seriously. And so underrated. Like, every year now, Florida State's not an easy job. It's really not. And what he's done is, they could get a 3 seed now. There's a shot they could get a 3 seed.
They really could.
One more break to tell you today's show is brought to you by The Athletic. If you haven't heard about The Athletic by now, you must be living under a rock. These guys have been crushing every element of sports coverage imaginable. Whether you're looking for specific local coverage with beat guys, sports discussed under a national lens, or anything and everything in between, make sure you take a look at The Athletic. No pop-ups, no ads, just high-quality content waiting behind every single click. Zach Harper, Frank Isola, Sam Amick, who is a guest on the show, Shams Charania, also a guest. They've got you covered in everything NBA related. If college hoops is more your style, then make sure you check out my guys Seth Davis, Dane O'Neill, Brian Hamilton. You can't get content like this anywhere else. 600 to 750 new articles a week. Who else is pushing out quality content like this? If you haven't signed up yet, take advantage of this deal because it's not going to last forever. Go to theathletic.com/Goodman. Get 40% off your monthly subscription. That's a subscription for less than $3 a month just by going to theathletic.com/Goodman. Shams, Amick, Harper, Seth Davis, Dane O'Neill, Brian Hamilton, all for less than $3 a month. Sign me up. Sign yourself up too. Athletic.com/Goodman. What's the on the flip side, and then we'll bounce around some more. What's the team that now you've kind of fallen off on this week that you're just like, I don't know. I don't have any faith in them as a Final Four contender. Who is it?
I think that it's Marquette. And this is something that kind of stems from the way that they ended the regular season. But they basically have one ball handler. And the guy that is their one ball handler is a guy that is more of a scorer than he is a creator. He can be pressured. You can make them turn the ball over. And now, I don't know what's actually wrong with him. But during this game, I don't know if you saw it, Jeff, in the Big East tournament, he went out. He hit his wrist on somebody, and he went out, and there was a picture of him in the back hallway getting his wrist messed with by the trainer, and you could see him grimacing in pain. But he's still out there. He's still out there playing. There's a minute left, and he's about to go to the free throw line to shoot 3 free throws. But I was all in on Marquette for a while, and I love the way that they can shoot. I love their upside. They are one of these teams. To me, they're kind of like LSU, and I put those two teams in the same category where they're talented enough and they're dangerous enough where it would not surprise me if whoever they played in the tournament, it would not surprise me if they beat them. If Marquette ended up drawing a Duke or a Virginia in the Sweet 16 and they beat them, that would not surprise me in the least because of what they can do when they get hot. I would also not be surprised if they were the team that lost to a 13 seed in the first round.
I think you could say that about
LSU.
Yeah, I think you could say that about 20 teams. Seriously, 25 teams, all those at-large teams that aren't in the top 8, you could say, I wouldn't be surprised if they lost their first game. I wouldn't be surprised if they make it to the second weekend, and then anything happens. For me, Purdue just doesn't look the part for me. Matt Painter, what he did with that group this year, I saw 2 of those. Baylor, I said that after watching Baylor and Scott Drew. And the fact that they're not even worried, they don't have to be worried about getting in the NCAA tournament. They're already locked in going into Selection Sunday. And Purdue to have a chance, again, Big Ten regular season, sharing the title and having a chance to be a 3-4 seed, whatever it is. I never would have thought. I would have thought that Purdue, again, would have been a fringe tournament team. So those are the 2 for me that, by the look test, I just don't expect that much of them in the NCAA tournament. Not to say they can't win a game or 2, but I don't think they can go deep.
I get so worried about Purdue just because Carson Edwards is a guy that could shoot you in and shoot you out of any game. And I don't know if I can trust somebody who has been –
his numbers are terrible in the Big Ten.
He was not good down the stretch.
He's been the whole Big Ten. He has not been very good, and that's the remarkable part of Matt Painter is like what they've been able to do. And again, Carson Edwards, like you said, listen, he takes contested shot after contested shot, and sometimes they go in, sometimes they don't.
This is actually there's a bigger picture thing that I want to get your take on here because you're at the Big Ten tournament right now. Are there any good teams in that conference? Like, I'm not
there are no great teams.
I'm really just wondering because, like, look, I love Michigan State and I love Cassius Winston, but they rolled a lineup out there today in crunch time where it was like Foster Lawyer, Matt McQuaid, Kyle Ahrens.
Don't be ripping on Matty McQuaid.
Xavier Tillman, and then and Kenny Goins. And that was their five with like 8 minutes left.
Only Tom Izzo.
Big Ten quarterfinal.
Only Tom Izzo could do that, though. Like, seriously, he could put that lineup out there and they could win. No, there are no great teams in the Big Ten. Like, if you're ranking the top teams in the country, I don't think anybody's going to put Michigan State or Michigan in the top five right now. I don't. I think most people are going to have – I've had this for the last month now. The top three for me, or top four, you can say, Gonzaga. Since Zion's been out, it's Gonzaga, Virginia, Kentucky for me, and Duke and Carolina have been 4 and 5, and I think those five are clear as day in terms of the top five that you feel good about, that you feel like, and then after that, like you said, Big Ten, Michigan, Michigan State, they're good. Big 12, I was just at, and you could say the same thing about the Big 12. Texas Tech's good. Are they great? I don't know. If they play Michigan State and Michigan 10 times, maybe Texas Tech splits. Kansas, they're still good. I mean, if Quentin Grimes, we saw the Champions Classic, Quentin Grimes tonight, and if they get that, Kansas still has enough to get to a Final Four. I'm not saying they can win 6 straight, but I think there's a lot of teams that can win 4 straight. Michigan State, Michigan being, Texas Tech, even though they lost to West Virginia. Let's move on. Let's move on to a couple other things here. One, and I think you're on board with me with this, my change, and I stole it from somebody. I think it might have been Jeff Grammer, who covers New Mexico for the Albuquerque paper. He might have been the one who first tweeted it. He probably stole it from somebody too. I love Jeff, but it's some variation.
Stole it from somebody.
yeah, it's some variation of this, and I don't know the specifics of how I do it, but let's say right now, for the first 4, you have these matchups: Belmont, NC State; Toledo, Indiana; UNC Greensboro, St. John's; Lipscomb, Texas. Like, wouldn't that be a whole lot more interesting? Putting the top, whoever they are, the top 4 mid-majors or low majors that are the last 4 to kind of get in against the last 4 to get in of the high majors, and like make it a fun, almost like event. Like, who deserves it more? Who's better? Are the mid majors? Because everybody wants to know, can the mid majors play with the high majors? And we don't know because they don't generally do it on a neutral court. It's usually on the home court of the high major team, commonly. So I would love to see it. I would actually watch it, where honestly, I don't watch the first 4 that often. I'm kind of watching while I'm home, trying to see my family a little bit while I'm packing to go away on Wednesday morning. But this one I'd watch if you put those 4, low and high against each other, or mid and high, whatever you want to call it. I'm in.
I would absolutely watch that. So here's where I'm kind of torn. I wish that they did not have a playing game involving the 16 seeds at all. But the thing is, like, those games actually do help those conferences out quite a bit because they get like their win share. Like a 16 seed winning a game means that league gets a win share for that. And that does, like, at that level for some of those programs, that really does help those schools. And I don't know exactly how much money it is, but when you're talking about the budgets that some of those low major programs have, like, that's actually a meaningful amount of money.
All right, we'll take up a little collection of everybody. Everybody whose idea this is, everybody who wants this, we'll take up a collection. We'll give those schools, a little bit of chunk of change.
Well, my only point was that that might be where you get the pushback from those schools. But the idea that you can have the first 4 before games where you literally have teams that didn't deserve to get into the tournament, because that's what the end of the at-large pool is.
Right.
All these teams that are like
in.
first four out, next four out, last four in, last four. None of those teams did enough to deserve to get in.
Right.
And I think we've talked about this, Jeff. That's my biggest issue with some of like the at-large stuff. Like I'm not going to sit here and say that I think that Belmont is necessarily a better basketball team than
NC State.
Say NC State or Alabama or whoever. It's that I just firmly am against the idea that you can go 18-14 and get an at-large bid. You can go 7-11 in your conference and get an at-large. I just hate the concept. Like you're not rewarding teams for doing good things.
Right.
You're rewarding them for recruiting well and being in a conference that is better than some like the Ohio Valley, which is why I'm on board with Belmont getting in and why I'm all in on this idea. I love the idea. And here's what my proposal would be, is that if there are multiple bids that come from your conference, then you are not eligible for inclusion as one of like the like quote unquote mid-major teams. But like this year, where the Atlantic 10 might only get, like, let's say that VCU wasn't a bubble team or wasn't a tournament team, VCU would end up being one of the teams that played in there, right? Or I guess the perfect example is the SoCon. So you would get that second team from the SoCon getting in. You would get the second team from the Ohio Valley getting in. And maybe someone like a Mike Dom at South Dakota State, you would have him getting in. And if it was like the Mountain West, if it ended up being in one bid league, then you would have Utah State getting the chance. Even the Pac-12 this year, What if
Arizona State? Yeah, that's right. You could put them in. No, you're right. Like I love that idea. I think it would draw more interest. I don't think they'll do it, but again, maybe I'll go after David Warlock and some of the committee members.
I just think it's more fair.
It is
because when it comes down to it,
it's what people want. I think it's more of what people want. Maybe I'm crazy.
It's what I want, but not everybody thinks like that, which is annoying. Like, some people just want like the best teams to get in and the best players to get in, and a lot of those people, Brian Snow.
Right.
The reason they do that, I'm just assuming, is because like when you cover grassroots, the idea is you want to get the best talent in there instead of getting the best teams and the most entertaining game and the best television, right? And I think that getting Belmont in there versus Indiana would be better television than getting whoever, NC State playing Clemson or whatever it would end up being. So I am firmly on board with this idea. I can 100% get behind it. I'm going to start campaigning for it. Whatever you need, you tell me. We're in.
All right. We're gonna work on that at the Final Four. Minneapolis, we're gonna just wear people out with this idea. Every time I see a committee member, I might have a pamphlet. Maybe we'll put together like a one-pager and just start handing it out to every committee member over and over and over.
We just have to be so annoying that they finally do it so that...
Right, we just wear them down.
That's the plan. That's what it's got to be.
It's like my 15-year-old daughter. Like when she just wears me down and I just give her money. Like whatever you want. Here, take the money and just leave me alone.
Here's $20. Just please stop talking for 10 minutes.
You'll find out.
Silence.
It doesn't work for you yet. Your kid's not old enough. But once they get old enough to understand the value of money, you might be able to do it with like candy.
Yes. I very much am on board with the idea that you can bribe children with candy.
Texas is 16-16. This is my segue into the coaching carousel, if you can't tell. Shaka Smart, 16-16. I saw him lose to Kansas last night. Feels like the other night. And it'll be interesting to see. I actually think the committee's going to put him in. Their net's good, and I think it's another sales pitch of, well, we're not going to, they're 16-16. We're going to put him in, but we're not really going to put him in. We're going to put him in the first four, and the hook is also Shaka back in the first four where he went first four to Final Four, so we'll get everybody to watch because of that. So I actually think Texas ends up getting in with the first four at the end of the day, depending.
The reason I think they have a chance is because of their non-conference schedule, and I think
it was so good.
I think that what's going to happen is, and the committee has like shown that this is something that they are willing to do. I think that it's just like the kind of situation where you put Texas in because they have, what is it, like a top 15 non-conference strength schedule. and you keep NC State out because they have the 353rd non-conference strength of schedule. And what that does is, like, it straight up incentivizes going out and playing a tough schedule in the non-conference.
Keep doing that. I love it.
There are ways that you can kind of game this stuff and make it look better. Like, the best example was if you played the number 1 team, the number 2 team, and the number 297 team, and then you played the 99th team, the 100th team, and the 101st team, both of those would have the same average strength of schedule. Your average opponent would be 100. Those ways. So, like, there's ways that you can kind of game what that is, but it's still, like, you at least have to try, right? Like, what NC State did, they didn't even try. And what St. John's did is they didn't even try. And Georgetown last year, they didn't even try. And like, in some of those situations, like, I do kind of get it. You know, in Georgetown, when you're young, you want to be able to build some confidence in the non-conference.
Yeah, but you don't say no to Phil Knight. Not when
you should not.
Not when Nike
you should not do that.
That's not when Nike helped Big John as much as he did. That's where you. The rest of it, go ahead, play some bad teams. But go to Portland and play in the PK80. That was just ridiculous.
And I guess, like, just what the large point is that you want to make sure that these teams have there's a reward, even if you end up going out and losing, like what Texas did a lot. If you end up going out and losing at home to a VCU and at home to a Radford that end up being good mid-major teams, you can still have the reward of getting an at-large bid. Something like that does not kill your resume, and actually it helps you, because the tiebreaker, it is whatever that little number is for non-conference strength of schedule. So I'm 100% on board with this idea that we should reward teams for actually trying to play good games in the non-conference. So
a bunch of us asked Chris Delcani about Texas AD, about Shaka Smart in his future. One reporter individual, I don't know who it was, but he hit him with it straight up, and Delcani basically kind of danced around it a little bit, said, I'm not talking about it now. We're in the middle of the season. Well, you're really not. You know, you're at the end of your season. I can understand you don't want to deal with it right now before the NCAA, makes a decision whether you're in the tournament or in the NIT or whatever. But he went on to say, what a great coach Shaka is. Then he told me specifically, the high integrity that Shaka has and everything like that. They're on the hook for like $13 million, Rob, and they're still paying their football coach money. They're doing all sorts of improvements to facilities, everything like that. I don't think they're going to buy out Shaka Smart. I don't. I think the only way something happens here is if something opens that might be more suited to Shaka Smart's liking at this point, that pays as well, that he can get out, get somewhere good. And that spot, from my understanding, might be like a Wake Forest. But Wake Forest probably doesn't have the money to buy Danny Manning out. You're talking 15, 18 million, whatever it is. He got a guaranteed deal. I don't think Wake buys Danny Manning out. So I think we're going to see some guys here stick around a little bit longer. Again, Texas, Shaka Smart another year. I think we could see Danny Manning another year. I think we could see Wyking Jones get another year at Cal. That school doesn't have a ton of money. But what we haven't seen, we saw UNLV make a move with Marvin Menzies. Obviously, Billy Kennedy is out. Washington State got rid of Ernie Kent. GW got rid of our guy, Maurice Joseph, who I thought that was just – listen, maybe it's because I've known Mojo since he was 14. I know you know him well, too. And I think he just got completely screwed. He got 3 years. When he inherited it, it was a disaster after Lonergan. His staff,
here's
everything.
The thing about that. So the team that he inherited after Lonergan, I would not say was a disaster.
No,
because
he
there
had
were
talent.
2 NBA players on that roster.
He had talent.
Right?
Yes.
That was probably a top 50 team.
Yep.
But the issue is,
situation.
Lonergan, like the culture of that program was just like completely beaten down because Lonergan, it was just like, he's just a bad person. He's just a guy that
I don't know whose fault. Listen, I've seen a lot written, and I can't get to the bottom of how much was Lonergan's fault and how much was the AD's fault.
All of the above.
Right.
I'd come down
Nero, Lonergan,
those guys
right. Yes.
just could not get along, and they did not like each other, and it created a culture within that team and that program that was just terrible. And that's what Mojo, as he was like 31 at the time, first time head coach. I think he had 3 years of full-time Division I assistant coaching experience. He walked into that. I give him credit for the way that he was able to
take the high road and
take the high road.
And just again, positivity. Love him.
Yes,
love him.
Exactly. And he did fine. And I don't think that this is the kind of thing that's like going to be completely derail his coaching career. I just think it was probably it was too
a little over his head. A little over his head.
Too soon for him. And I don't have this sourced at all. This is just kind of like this speculation that I think is probably there's some truth to it. I think part of the reason he got the job is they thought that it would be easier to kind of cut ties with everything by the end of it, right? And then he turns around and he actually has a pretty good season his first year with the program, so he gets a full deal. And they were like, hey, maybe we actually found something here. So I don't think that it's necessarily that he walked into an impossible, awful situation, but he walked into a team that needed somebody that had more seasoning than he did, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, we'll move
That's
through.
That's going to be a fascinating job, by the way, because there's a lot of people seem like they want to get their hat in the ring there.
GW is a good job. I mean, again, it's in D.C. You can win in that league. I mean, absolutely. I think you're going to see some names. All right, let's go through the bigger ones, though, quickly here. All right, UNLV is very intriguing because you've got an AD who I think would like to go clean. So I don't think she wants to take a shot on Rick Pitino right now because Rick Pitino's the Louisville investigation isn't done from the NCAA. So I think anybody right now, it's difficult to hire Rick Pitino. But some of the money people certainly want Rick Pitino there. Jason Kidd is a name I've heard a lot lately, a lot. Now, again, he's in the mix for the Lakers job if they get rid of Luke Walton, from what I'm told, as is Ty Lue. Both of those guys could be. Ty Lue lives in Vegas. I actually saw him and talked with him for a while in the summer when he was there watching Howard Isley's kid. I think it was Howard Isley, right? Howard Isley's kid. And then LeBron's kid showed up. LeBron and his kid played. So anyway, the name I threw out there that I would hire at UNLV, did you see who I picked?
Was it Thad Matta?
No. That would be a terrible hire in Vegas. Horrible.
That was a name that I saw getting bounced around.
Terrible. I've seen it too. It would be a disaster.
I got a name for you.
Frank Martin's the name. That's who you hire.
Interesting.
If you could pay him. Now you got to pay him $3 million.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Well, they could pay if they want to. You're telling me they can't raise $3 million. The money people in Vegas. Come on.
I got a better name for you, though.
Go ahead.
Mike Miller.
Yeah, I had him on there. I like Mike. He's got 1 year as an assistant coach. Frank Martin's got 27 years as in the coaching business, a Final Four and several.
Well, see, the where I'm coming from this is from. Let me put it like this: if you can get Frank Martin, I think you get Frank Martin over Mike Miller. But the problem is, I don't know if you can get him, and I don't know if you can afford him. And when it comes down to it, Mike Miller is a guy that has plenty of money. Like, money is not going to be the issue for him, right?
No, he'll take it. He'll take it on the low.
He'll take that job just to take the job.
Yeah.
So
he just wants a head job. Sure.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Imagine Mike Miller in Vegas. Oh my God.
And he would get the players too, man. You would get talent go into that program with Mike Miller there. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I like that one. All right, Texas A&M. The lowdown on this one is obviously Buzz. They're going to try to get Buzz Williams and pay him a shitload of money to leave Virginia Tech, which I think there's a good chance he does at the end of the day if it is a shitload of money. Remember, two of his former assistants went from Virginia Tech. One's there still. The other was fired, Isaac Chu. The other one, Jeff Reynolds, is at Texas A&M. I feel bad for Billy Kennedy. Can I start there? I feel bad. One of my favorite people, one of the best guys in the business. Obviously, we know he's Parkinson's. He's slowed down a little bit, but I thought when he hired Rick Stansbury, I'd heard enough when he hired him as an assistant, and that didn't end well. I get it. I get it that obviously everybody left after last year, but they went to the Sweet 16. I understand it. I do. I understand it. That doesn't mean I have to like it because, again, to me, one of the salt of the earth guys is Billy Kennedy in this business.
Yeah, it's you got to win, and
Yep.
That's kind of what it comes down to. And I thought that they would end up just transitioning him into like an athletic department role, right? But it doesn't sound like that's what's going to happen. And like honestly, I think that this is the right move because I don't think that you keep a coach around just because he's a good guy, right?
I'm
like,
with you. I'm with you.
And so like I don't like crushing Billy Kennedy because for all
No,
reasons.
it wasn't
Just
going
said,
in the right direction. I'm
I think if
totally
you
with you
get
there.
Buzz, you got to go get Buzz. But here's my one thing though with
Yep.
Texas A&M and Buzz Williams. Can you go out at a football school like Texas A&M and get a basketball coach that is going to be like a bigger personality than your football coach is? Can that work?
Buzz knows how to play the game. He's great at playing the game. So he'll clearly do what he has to do to kind of act like he's taking a step back. So, yeah, Buzz will be fine with that. He'll be fine with that for a while.
Because he'll win there. Like my issue is not whether or not Buzz Williams would win. When Shaka got hired at Texas, I was the guy that was leading the Buzz train to Texas. I just thought that made more sense and was a better fit. Like it's just you put Buzz in a situation where he can go out, like he's going to get his Texas guys, he's going to get his under recruited guys, he's going to get people that feel disrespected, that are overlooked, whatever, and he's going to preach them, and he's going to have the whole have his team played a certain way, and he's going to do all of that, and it's just a perfect fit for me when it comes to putting him at a school in Texas. So if you're Texas A&M, I think you have to go make that happen.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I think the only other guy I would go after, and I don't think you can get him, is Chris Beard. I don't think he'd leave Texas Tech for Texas A&M. I think if you're Chris Beard, you sit tight and you wait for Texas, you wait for Arizona. You see if UCLA comes calling, even though he's not a great fit maybe in L.A. or in Westwood. But Beard would be a guy. And it'll be interesting to see if Buzz waits and sees what's going on at Texas, what's going on in Arizona. I don't think anything's going to go on at Arizona until May, until the trial is April 22nd. I don't think Arizona's stuck by Sean Miller this long. I don't think they're going to fire him next week. I think they're going to wait, again, to see kind of what happens in the trial. And maybe, who knows?
Dodge a bullet.
Yeah, maybe nothing comes out. And if something comes out that clearly implicates Sean Miller, well, then Arizona says, you know what? All right, we did what we had to do all this time. Now we're going to make a move. Now we have no choice. That's what I would do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the smart play. And honestly, like if you're Buzz Williams, I get the idea of like maybe going to get Texas. Like that makes sense. But I don't know if I wait on Arizona over waiting on Texas A&M without knowing what the NCAA is going to end up doing to Arizona.
Well, if you get Arizona, listen, the bottom line is if you get Arizona, that means there was something on Sean Miller that came out in the trial, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
So that means there's going to be some sort of sanctions on the program. So you're right. I mean, how many guys are going to take it? Is Buzz one of them? I mean, the difference is, again, Virginia Tech, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, they're not Arizona. You're not winning national titles at any of those places. Arizona, yeah, you may have to wait a few years. But like Arizona, UCLA, and Texas, if you're ranking those three jobs, you'd probably put Arizona at number one overall. Now, not today with everything that's going on around the program. But like Texas, I don't want to say it's an overrated job, but they don't love basketball there. They don't show up for basketball at Texas. They show up for basketball at Arizona.
Here's the reason why it works, because like Shaka Smart is 66 and 66 in 4 years or something like that, right? Like he's been right around 500. I think that like if he makes this tournament, it'll be his third NCAA 4 years. I don't think that they might have won one game.
They have not won a game.
So they haven't won a game. And at a basketball school, that's enough to get you fired. But at Texas Tech, they're sitting there like, do we really want to pay a $13 million buyout for the basketball coach when we paid a $10 million buyout for the football coach? Like, do we actually care enough when we're rolling? Like, if Shaka Smart ends up getting this thing going great, how many fans are we going to end up having in the stands? How much are people actually going to care? They only care about it if, like, they're great.
Yeah.
And if for, like, the 2 months between the end of bowl season and before the start of spring practices. And is it really worth it to invest all that much money to make a change when you got to pay the buyout for Shaka Smart and then you got to pay the buyout for Buzz Williams or Chris Beard, whoever you go after? I don't think it is. Like, why wouldn't they just wait a couple years and, hope that maybe Shaka catches lightning in a bottle? I think that that's probably what the smart play would be if you are the University of Texas and running that athletic department. Like, I just don't think they care. It's not worth $13 million to make a move.
Tim Miles lost today, and they put out a statement. You see the statement by the AD, Bill Moose?
How dumb is that? We're going to wait to evaluate our basketball program until we find out if we made the NIT.
Bill Moose might be the worst AD in colleges right now. He may be the worst. Now, remember, this is the same guy who extended Ernie Kent over and over. Bill Moose should have to give back money to Washington State. Like, legitimately, they should ask for his salary back. And now, again, like, listen, if you know you're going to fire Tim Miles right now. Like, don't make him wait it out. Like, he's going to wait it out another few days for what? You're going to fire him. Everybody knows he's gone. He knows he's gone. Just whack him now.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to. Just letting him twist in the wind like that, it's just not nice. It's mean. And I'll tell you what, man, like I try not to play favorites with coaches, but I will openly say that Tim Miles, to me, is just a hilarious human being, and I really enjoy him being in college basketball and being relevant in college basketball. So I was 100% here for Nebraska making a run and getting it an automatic bid to the tournament. I wanted that more than anything. And look, I'll tell you what, if they had beat Wisconsin, then we could have actually started talking about them actually being on the bubble. And I wanted nothing more.
It's crazy.
Than Tim Miles with 6 scholarship players playing some walk-on and some guy from Iceland whose name I'm guaranteed that he can't pronounce.
No.
I wanted nothing more than that team to make that run and to get to that tournament. Especially, like, you saw the video of him falling down, right?
Oh, my God. Might have been, honestly, like probably the best video of this season, right? I mean, could there have been a better video this season that happened in college basketball?
No, definitely not a funnier one, because
it was
like
awesome.
For people that haven't seen that, he's running into the tunnel trying to celebrate with fans and just completely like eats it, falls over, rolls over, and then gets up and sticks his hands up in the air and does the safe sign, like he just slid into second base. It was unbelievable comedic timing.
All right, well, listen. I've had it. I got to eat. I haven't really eaten dinner, so I got to.
Can we talk real quick about GW jobs?
GW jobs, sure. Who do you like?
I like. Who would I hire?
Who would you hire?
I think the first call that I would make is James Jones at Yale.
Ooh, he deserves it. He's been great.
He deserves it.
Yeah.
I think that I would look at. I think Jamie and Christian would do really well there. I don't know if you want to pay whatever. Like, he just hired at Siena. I don't know if we want to pay that to go get him. But here's the really interesting name to me.
Go ahead. Who do you got?
John Thompson III.
Yep, I've heard that name a bunch. Yeah, I like that. I got no problem with that whatsoever.
That would be a fascinating dynamic to put JT3 at another private school in D.C. when his dad has a statue, like a 12-foot statue in the front of the new Georgetown practice facility. That would be awesome to me.
Yeah, I'm for it. You know who? I got one for you. It's a little bit out of left field in terms of the geography. Mike Young.
I could see it. I don't.
I mean, he'd be better at like a Richmond. Like if Chris Mooney, something happens with Chris Mooney, which I don't think it's going to. I think Chris Mooney's fine for another year. But like a Mike Young at Richmond would, I think, be ideal.
That would make sense. Like, his roots are Southern Virginia. Like, he would love to be back down there. But I get the feeling that I don't think he's going to leave Wofford for any job. I think that he's been there for 30 years, man. He got that job.
No, he's not going to leave for any job. He's not. Agreed. But is he going to get a Wake if it opened? Is he going to get a Clemson? I don't know if he gets any of those jobs. He's 55 now. So do you just – and his wife's got a good job. I think she's a partner in a law firm. So he's not going to leave for anything. Absolutely, you're right. But
I think that if you're him, you have to at least listen because he's caught lightning in the bottle this year. I don't know if he can ever put together a team that is going to be better than this team that he has right now. And this might actually be the year that he could have a chance to get one of those jobs, like one of those big power conference jobs, especially if they go out and then win 2 games and get the Sweet 16 or something like that.
Right. Then you might have to leave. To leave.
So but here's my thing though. So if you leave like you're never getting fired from Wofford, right? Like you can retire.
No, you're Rick Bird. You're Rick Bird. You're Bob McKillop. Those are the same type of deal.
Yeah, and I think you have to make the decision. Do you want to take a shot at a higher level and kind of cash out and go get that like $10 million payday? Or do you just kind of hang out where you are, stay happy where you are, try to convince them to give you more money and just hang out and become like an absolute legend and like have a court named after you, have a building named after you, and have everything that happens with Wofford moving forward associated with the name and the coaching of Mike Young. And it's a tough decision, man. Like I can see the benefits of both sides.
It is. No, you're right. A few more jobs to kind of keep an eye on that I've heard could go kind of either way here. Boston College, certainly with Jim Christian. Bryce Drew. Got to watch out a little bit.
That's an interesting one. I've heard that a couple times too, this is what, like his second year?
3. It's year 3, but a new AD who didn't hire him, obviously, who's a basketball guy. So we'll see where that goes. Tulane. I think something could happen as soon as
I heard he's getting another year.
Yeah, I think that's 50-50. And obviously, you got to keep track of Will Wade. What's going to happen with Will Wade here? And that might take some more time.
Yeah, that's going to take more time. But if he's not talking to the athletic department heading into the 1 year where like they have a chance to legitimately get to a Final Four, like how many times is LSU going to have a chance to be able to do what they're about to be able to do here?
That's it.
Tell me if this is a hot take for you, because this is my take on the situation.
All right, go ahead.
If I'm the LSU AD,
yeah,
I just play him. I just let Will Wade coach, because no matter what happens, like you're almost guaranteed to have the season kind of get wiped out, right?
Right. Most likely, you're right. You're right. If Will Wade was found to have paying for, again, the difference with some of the other guys could be that they didn't get the player. They didn't get the player that they were on the conversation talking about, maybe, whether it was – I'm not going to mention names. But the bottom line is they didn't get the guy. Will Wade got the guy here that's in question, which is Javonte Smart. So you're right. Like, if it comes back and it's proven to be true, the season's gone. It's wiped out. So if you get to a Final Four, yeah, it'll be wiped out years later. But you're right. Like, this point – I just don't know if you can ride with it because, again, the Yahoo report was pretty specific. It was detailed. And if he won't sit down and at least talk about it, like I think you got to do that. You got to, with your lawyer, you got to go in there and do that. And you might be able to no comment some of it, but there's no way you're getting back on the court without talking. Like I wouldn't do that either.
Here's the problem with that. And I agree with you. Like that's the one catch here is that Will Wade won't even go in and have a conversation.
Right. If you're LSU, if you're the administration, if you're the president, you're saying there's no way in hell I'm putting you back out there until you talk.
Yeah, but here's the thing: like if you're Will Wade and you see like Book Richardson and all of these guys having to plead out to like federal charges, if you see people that are caught up in this going to like federal jail for 9 months or 12 months or whatever it is. Are you going to go out there and talk to
No, because there are no charges. So no. It's absolutely not because there are no charges against Will Wade right now. So you don't want to put anything out there that could eventually materialize into information that could lead to charges against you and you going to prison. So, yeah, I get it on both sides. And that's where I think, you know what, it's gonna play, run its course in terms of the investigation. See what happens again when Will Wade has to take the stand in April to be subpoenaed, and see what comes out of that, and see what comes out of the trial.
Yeah, I still would just go out there and let it rip with them because you're LSU. It's your LSU basketball.
You know what I would do?
It ends up coming down and hammering you and saying, you know what, you are banned from the next 12 NCAA tournaments. Well, you know what, you were probably only going to make like 2 or 3 of them anyway. So what are you really missing?
I'd bring Shaq in. Let Shaq coach him now. How great would that be? They just write Shaq in. Like,
it would be fun.
Oh my God! Like, tell me you wouldn't want to go to that. Like, whatever site LSU was at, everybody would be there.
Well, I don't know if it would be fun or if it would be an absolute disaster, because I'm not convinced that Shaq would actually care about it at all.
God, I love Shaq. I just still remember the time he got me in a headlock when I interviewed him at the Hall of Fame on camera, like a legitimate headlock. All right, we're out of here. It is late. It is later your time, and I got a meeting in the morning, and then I got a couple games to go to, a couple Big Ten semifinal matchups. But Rob Dauster, thanks for joining me. We'll do it again during the NCAA tournament.
Always a pleasure, my man.
Thanks, man.
Hey, sports fans. I'm Coach Nick of the B-Ball Breakdown podcast on the CLNS Media Network. I break down the NBA from a coach's perspective and have some of the best basketball minds join me weekly to discuss the latest NBA news and what's truly going on the court. Subscribe to the B-Ball Breakdown podcast wherever you get your podcasts or find us on clnsmedia.com. It's a great conversation. You in?